My name is Jule Schultz, and I work with the Department of Health Office of Shellfish and Water Protection. We monitor water quality in shellfish beds to evaluate fecal coliform standards. We make sure basically that shellfish are safe to eat in Washington State, along with our biotoxin program and our licensing program.
I'm Michael Adams. I'm the chair of the Jefferson County Marine Resources Committee and also a shellfish grower in Jefferson County. What Jule didn't mention is that this is part of our commitment to the International Shellfish Sanitation Conference and allows us to sell clams, oysters, and other shellfish internationally, state to state, and within the state of Washington. So we do it as a volunteer opportunity through the Marine Resources Committee to support Jefferson County and the Washington State Department of Health. Today we are taking 67 water quality samples, and basically what we do is we have a hole, we take a 100 milliliter sample in a plastic bottle, we put those samples then on ice. They're taken to Shoreline's Washington State Department of Health lab where they're analyzed for fecal coliform. If fecal coliform is present, then it shows that there's some sort of problem with water, and the areas are either re-looked at or closed down according to the ISSC regulations.
We'll be going to Killset Harbor, Oak Bay, Matsmats Bay, the Port Townsend area, and Mystery Bay. We got the boat work, we got the kicker motor working.
So, first thing we do is we take 2 temperature controls. And these are determined that our temperature samples never go above 10 degrees Celsius. And then each one of these bottles has a number on it. And then we take a 100 milliliter sample and take a salinity measurement with the refractometer. And then all this data gets recorded by Jule and then follows the sample along to the lab in Shoreline.
There's 2 reasons why this sample could be here. One, it's on the edge of the growing area, and so any pollution that would come from outside the growing area where we don't monitor could come into the growing area, and so we place stations right on the edge of the growing area. We also place stations at boat ramps in many cases because boater waste is a cause of pollution in shellfish beds.
You're good to go. We sample are all the drainage outfalls and gooey duct tracts.
Yeah, so we sample pollution sources, and then we sample the edges of the gooey duct tract to make sure there's no pollution coming in from outside and not from a non-monitored area.
So that outfall up there is
could be a pipe of unknown origin. We do shoreline surveys in the area to make sure that none of these are failing septic systems or any other harmful pollution source that would prevent shellfish harvesting in the area. We know that pipe isn't harmful to shellfish, but it could have just runoff that seasonally may have high fecal coliforms, and that's why we have the station there.
26. You're good to go, Jule.
Long for it's nice when it's sunny out, but if it's blowing and sunny, I'd rather have it flat and cloudy. It's hard to say whether they're holding them longer or it's just because they're picking them up from a different environment. I don't think we really have the science to say that, but we have had hot
26.
Hot varnish clams, and when nothing else is hot.
Gotcha.
And so it's you would suspect they're holding it longer, but
it may be the.
So what's the difference in the varnish clams?
They're a bimodal feeder, so they feed both siphoning like a normal clam, but then they'll also vacuum up the substrate around them.
So I understand that they have the split siphon. They have a split siphon,
yeah.
And they can just sort of lay that down on the surface around them and suck up everything that's in that circumference.
Heavily gravelly. They like the same environment as the manillas and the little neck.
Now, I always thought they were mud species. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Have you eaten them before?
Yeah, they're a little on the bitter side. If you had to say what they're closest to, they're probably closest to a native little neck. $25. $26.
This is the Killset Harbor growing area. It runs the entire length of Killset Harbor, and
Jule, you're good.
contained with it is Mystery Bay. It's mostly clam harvesting. I don't believe there are any geoduck tracks within Killset Harbor. And there's a recreational beach up at Fort Flagler State Park, and there may be some down at Mystery Bay State Park. That's a different growing area. All our data is public and on the web, and we have a website that you can actually look at each individual day's water samples to see what we got. But we also collect the information and compile it and average the data over the long term to see if there's trends and if we need to change the classification of a growing area. 12 degrees Celsius.
So is there any rhyme or reason to the bottles that we're seeing here that are being labeled?
Yeah, so those bottle numbers correspond with the stations that are in growing areas, and we label each station in the growing area in consecutive numbers. It's a procedural thing that the lab likes us to do. But then we can go back and correspond each bottle number with the individual station and know the results from that one point. Mystery Bay has an interesting story. In most cases where there is a marina, we do not allow shellfish harvest because of the high density of boats and the potential for boaters to throw their waste overboard. Mystery Bay is a popular place for locals to store their boats. And we had to think of a solution to this, and we work with the local community and other groups to track who owns these boats and where they live, and to make sure that no one is living on the boats with the potential to throw waste overboard. And that gives that allows us to keep this growing area open part of the time. Water quality in Mystery Bay is very good. It rarely shows any fecal coliform, but just the potential for boaters to throw waste overboard makes us, it necessitates us to close the growing area.
And there are shellfish vets here in Mystery Bay, correct?
Yeah, there's a shellfish company, a commercial shellfish company. So not only is there a recreational harvest, there's a commercial harvest as well.
Okay, we're on sample 36, Jule, and we have a salinity reading of enough water on there. 26.
This area right here, there is a commercial shellfish company on the beach. I believe it's Broder's Clams. And because the boats are so spread out and far enough away from his beach, we don't feel that the boats impact the clams here, the water quality, and therefore the harvest. However, we sort of have sample sites all around this guy's property just to make sure.
You got small fry in here. 25.
When you're next to a pollution source that produces as much fresh water as a river, fecal coliform can get pretty far out into a bay. But when you're talking about a sparsely habitated area without a lot of freshwater input, in many cases you don't get as many fecal coliforms out here.
Got it. Coliform is just an indicator for the presence of a problem, not the problem itself. Right,
yeah, so it's an indicator for the presence of harmful viruses and bacteria that can make you sick. And that's what we found. It's the most reliable and easiest way to predict viruses or harmful bacteria, pathogens we call them, in shellfish beds. We monitor water quality in geoduck beds like this one, where the geoduck are harvested from 17 feet below the surface of the water down to 70 feet below the surface of the water. And depending on what kind of sample we take, if we're, in many cases, if we're looking to monitor the recreational clam or oyster industry, we'll get in as close as we can to the shoreline to grab a water sample. So we're trying to be right over the bed. With the geoduck, it's similar in many cases, where we'll try to be a little bit more over the geoduck. So something like it's between the pollution source and the harvest site, basically, is where we're going. So we're in 10 feet of water right now.
So this is Matt's Bay?
This is Matt's. Yeah, we have one person that has a license to harvest in here, and this is conditionally managed as well, based on boating uses. But there's a number of oysters on the beach up here, and it is a productive area. A little tricky to get into at low tides, but I think we're good right now.
You got plenty of water on me.
Yeah. Oh, this is, you get
48.
And you're on top of it.
Next time.
All right, sounds good.
25.